Today we'll be giving a gameplay overview and review of the game Flamme Rouge, created by Asger Harding Granerud and published by Lautapelit.fi. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode with To Die For Games. I'm Mandi, the board gaming pinup girl. My fellow hosts are
Tracy, the gaming maven.
Stephane, the game's teacher.
We've got timestamps below, so click on what you're looking for.
Leave us a comment to tell us how we're doing and subscribe to get notified when we post new content.
Flamme Rouge plays in about 30 to 45 minutes, is suggested for ages 8 and up, and accommodates 2 to 4 players. We've got Flamme Rouge all set up and ready to go, so let's get to it.
Players are cyclists in 1930s Paris. Using their sprinter and rouleur to great effect, players race to be the first to cross the finish line. So Mandi, tell us what's inside the box.
4 player boards, 8 cyclist miniatures, 1 sprinter and 1 rouleur per player, 60 exhaustion cards, 30 sprinter cards, and 30 rouleur cards, 120 energy cards, 4 player decks, each with 15 sprinter and 15 rouleur cards, 6 stage cards, 4 reference cards, 21 double-sided track tiles consisting of 1 start, 1 finish, 7 straight, 6 soft turns, and 6 sharp turns. All right, now that we know what we're playing with, how do we set up? Tracy?
Picking a stage card, build a track with tiles that are on the route. Each player receives a player board and matching colored cyclist miniatures and energy cards. Each player shuffles their sprinter deck and places it on the designated spot on their player board. Repeat this with the ruler deck. Shuffle the sprinter and ruler exhaustion decks and place them face up next to the track. The player who rode their bike most recently becomes the start player, and in turn order, players place their 2 cyclists in any free lane spot behind the start line. Now that we're all set up, how do we play? Stephane?
Each round consists of 3 phases. Phase 1, Energy Phase. Simultaneously, players draw 4 cards from one of their 2 decks. Players then choose 1 card and play it face down next to their player board. Place the remaining cards face up under their matching draw pile. Then, repeat with the other deck. Phase 2, Movement Phase. Players turn over both played cards, and starting with the right frontmost cyclist, players move the matching cyclist the exact number of spaces forward, ending their turn in the right-hand side of the lanes if it is empty, or the left-hand space if the right space is occupied. Note: players can move through other players' cyclists, but only 1 cyclist can occupy each square. Phase 3, End Phase. All played cards are removed from the game. Then you apply slipstreaming. Starting with the backmost riders, each pack that is exactly 1 square behind a pack in front is moved forward so that they merge. Repeat the process with any other packs that are eligible. Any riders that have a completely empty square in front of them take an exhaustion card from the corresponding deck and place face up on the bottom of the matching deck. So, how do mountains work? Mandi?
Mountain tiles have ascents and descents. Ascents are marked with red arrows each turn a rider moves on, or through an ascent, the most they can move is 5 spaces, even if the card played is higher. Descents are marked with blue arrows, and when a rider starts their movement on a descent, they move at least 5 squares, even if the card played is lower. So, how does the game end? Tracy?
Once a player crosses the finish line with one of their riders, the round is played out and the furthest across the line wins. So that is how you play Flamme Rouge.
So now we're ready to give a review of Flamme Rouge. What do you guys think?
I really like it. Yeah, I'm surprised because I'm not a cyclist. I don't watch cycling, but I really did enjoy it.
I was surprised. I was all prepared to not like this game, and I really loved it, actually. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy this game, so I used to cycle, I do, spinning, so close enough. So it appealed to me a lot. So I really enjoyed it. So we are going to get to some of the other points. Artwork and theme.
Given that it's kind of supposed to be 1930s France versus modern day France, the art kind of has that look of the older kind of 30s style of feel to it, and very, very kind of French feel to the art for sure. So very appropriate. Definitely thematic. Like you have this track, and the track is windy, or depending on how you're going, and you have your sprinters and your rulers who are like, they're trying to edge each other out and the other opponents. So very thematic for sure.
Yeah.
I really like the card art. I thought it was great. The exhaustion cards, the guys are like, it was pretty funny actually. It was very humorous, and I really enjoyed it.
So yeah, I have to agree with that. The artwork made me laugh. I was like, yeah, and that's literally what you feel like after you've had like a long bike ride. So that definitely appealed to me. I played with a few people, and I don't know if you guys thought this as well. I had, I guess, not really an issue, but a confusion between the roller and the sprinter. And because I do a bit of biking, and actually the person I played with is a cyclist, like they do this seriously, we found the position should have been reversed.
Okay.
From the position on the bike. Now, I don't know if there was a particular reason why they specifically chose those positions. Like, is it based off of something historical? Because the positions that they were in were different.
Okay. You would have had the sprinter on the right and the roller on the left, the rouleur on the left?
Just the way they are on the depicted, like
on
their
the
position
board.
On the board, like on their miniatures, and on the card, like one's a bit higher up and one's like more of in a racing position. So we were a little confused, and I know even people who didn't bike found it confusing.
Oh, really? Because as a non-cyclist, like a bike, obviously, but as a non-cyclist, it wouldn't have occurred to me until you mentioned it. So. And
I thought maybe it's just me because I'm more of like a spinner, but one of our friends is a cyclist, and he mentioned it.
So a sprinter is more hunkered down, lower to the frame.
When you're going and you're racing and you're going fast, you're down in this position.
True.
So we were like versus the other one where you're climbing, which is the higher position. Yes. So. I don't know. So maybe I'm missing something, or we were missing something, but I did find it a little bit confusing. But other than that, I enjoyed like the little minis. I enjoyed the board. I mean, it was very simple, but straightforward to the point and very thematic, which kind of leads us into quality of components. What do you guys think?
Cyclist meeples. It's kind of awesome. I like those. Cardboard is super, super thick, so you're not worried about wearing.
Right.
Especially since it's a modular board, so I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the modular board. Everything was pretty well done quality-wise. The sculpts were simple; they weren't overly detailed, but they did the purpose that they needed to do. I thought quality was overall pretty good.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, like I said earlier, it's a simple game, but everything worked really well. Nothing was flimsy for the most part, so I thought it was good. And let's go on to game mechanics.
So for me, game mechanics were very simple. It's nice. It's a nice, simple game, easy for that. The one thing we noticed when we played it, though, and this is kind of a feedback from some people we played with, was that there wasn't a lot of player interaction because it's really just, other than the streamlining, which you know, you're working with other people, what other people are doing, but you're still kind of surprised based on what the turnout, right? So we thought maybe, you know, maybe as an expansion or something they could do later on for a new edition would be to add like cards that maybe mess up your opponents, like cards like that will trip them up, or you know, you take a disadvantage to be able to do this to another player.
Right.
There's a couple things I think they might make it a little more, either more competitive for people who want a little more depth to the game, or for people who just want a little more player interaction, because there wasn't a lot of that really. Right. And I found we were all very close at the end, although you'd mentioned in another game you played that you were a little more spaced out. So
it was a 2-player, and we were no, in the 2-player game we were pretty close together, and then at the end, because I didn't play my cards very well, I burnt out. But there was somebody else you were saying, I think. I don't think it was in the games I played, but there was a lot of spacing.
There was, and there was another, the people that played it next to us at Ludo, the way that we just went to this weekend, they had a lot of space between them. Okay. So when we played a 4-player game, it was very tight. Like really tight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Game mechanics I thought were simple to pick up. I mean, I was able to teach this game to 4 people who'd never played it before in about 5 minutes.
Which is great.
And they didn't ask me any questions afterwards, and at the end I'm like, what do you think of the game? They're like, we loved it, it was great. So obviously, you know, the fact that I could teach it that quickly and they picked it up means the game mechanics were very light and accessible, and still a lot of fun.
Awesome, yeah, and I agree exactly everything you said, so no need to repeat. So now let's even come up with similar games. Sven?
So another racing game by Canadian publisher Roxley Games is Steampunk Rally. Okay. So it has a modular board. You have the racing aspect. It's a different theme, obviously, but you know, it's another racing game in the same vein. Okay, good.
Actually, one you did mention was Riff Raff. Although Riff Raff is a Dex game, it's similar. You're racing to be the first to put all your pieces on, and you're using the cards. Once you spend a card, you can't use that card anymore. So the mechanic is different, but the way you play the game, dexterity versus racing game, but the general way you play the cards is very similar.
It's good. Okay. So for me, I thought of like Mission Red Planet we had talked about earlier, Lewis and Clark, where you have a set of cards, and you kind of expend them, and then there's a card that allows you to pick them all up again. But you get other cards within that to use, which can kind of either help you out, slow you down. So it really just depends. So in that aspect, you're all racing to the end, and that's the kind of idea. Now this game is much simpler versus the ones I've mentioned, but it's something similar to give you an idea. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. It's a great game. It appealed to me in so many ways that I didn't think it was going to, based on the actual theme wasn't really my thing. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. And like I said, if they somehow make it a little more challenging for those times when you want it to be a little bit heavier, a little bit more deeper, then that would be awesome. But I did like it just the way it was. So fantastic game for sure.
Yeah.
It sat on our dining room table where most of our games sit for a couple of weeks, and I didn't touch it. I didn't really have much interest in it, but then when we pulled it out and finally played it, I really enjoyed the game.
Yeah.
So, like Tracy said, the theme initially didn't appeal to me, but once we got into it, I'm like, this is all right. This is pretty cool. So yeah, all in all, I have to say I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah. I too enjoyed this game. The first time I played it was with 2 players. I played it again with a higher player count, and I know there's you can add the hills and things that make it a little bit more difficult, or change the excitement maybe level of the game. It was really good, and I think I like the fact that we have seen other people play it, pick it up really easily, and their faces go, "Oh, I really enjoyed it." You know what I mean? So I think I liked that, the fact that it was easy to teach, easy for people to pick up, and still had a really good time. So overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a great game.
Yep.
So 2 thumbs up.
Definitely.
Yay! So that's it for now, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.